All right, let's talk about the BrahMos. It's a missile that's become way more than just a piece of military hardware. It's really a statement of power and ambition. Based on an analysis from Defense Squad, we're going to break down what makes this supersonic threat a potential game changer in modern warfare.
So here's our game plan for unpacking the story of BrahMos. We'll kick things off with its pretty fearsome reputation, then rewind a bit to see why it was even needed in the first place. After that, we'll get into the nuts and bolts of the technology, trace its path to becoming a made-in-India success story, and finally see how it's become a global calling card for India's defense industry.
You know, to really get a feel for how this missile is seen, it's pretty interesting how our source material sets the stage. It doesn't start with technical specs or boring data. Nope, it jumps right into a dramatic, though fictional, military scenario it calls Operation Sindoor.
And that is what you call a hook. It's written to immediately grab your attention, right? It sets these incredibly high stakes and paints a picture of the immense power the BrahMos missile is said to bring to a conflict.
So, what's the point of this story? Well, it's pretty straightforward. To show off the missile's supposedly devastating accuracy and power. It's framed as a weapon that completely rewrites the rules of engagement, giving India the option for these incredibly fast, precise, and just overwhelming conventional strikes.
Okay, so that's the what. But what about the why? Why did a weapon like this even need to be developed? To get that answer, we've got to jump in the time machine and head back to the 1990s, a really challenging time for India strategically.
You have to picture the situation back then. It was an incredibly complex and tense security environment. India was in a tough spot. It needed a way to strike decisively with conventional weapons. But, and this is a huge but, without that strike being mistaken for a nuclear launch. That was a very real risk with traditional long-range ballistic missiles. The mission was to find a tool that was powerful, for sure, but not one that would accidentally start a nuclear war.
And the answer to that strategic puzzle, well, it came from a pretty unique partnership between India and Russia.
Now this is super important. This wasn't just India buying something off the shelf from Russia. This was a genuine joint venture, a real partnership. They even symbolized it by blending the names of two famous rivers, the Brahmaputra and the Moska. And their goal was singular and incredibly ambitious, to build the world's fastest supersonic cruise missile, together.
All right, let's pop the hood and get into the really cool stuff. The tech. What exactly makes this missile so formidable? How does this thing actually work?
Okay, first things first. Before we can really talk about BrahMos, we need to get a quick handle on a fundamental difference in how missiles work. You've got ballistic missiles and you've got cruise missiles. They're not the same thing at all.
And here's the key difference, right? Think of a ballistic missile like throwing a rock really, really high. It goes up in a big, predictable arc, which actually makes it easier to track on radar. But a cruise missile? That's a whole different beast. It flies low, hugging the ground, using the terrain itself to hide from radar. It's all about stealth and surprise.
And that's where BrahMos comes in. It's a supersonic cruise missile. This is the key to everything. It takes that sneaky, low-altitude flight of a cruise missile and combines it with just mind-blowing speed.
And when you put it side by side with other famous missiles, you really start to see why it's such a big deal. You look at well-known Western missiles like the Tomahawk or the Scalp, they're subsonic. They fly slower than the speed of sound. BrahMos, on the other hand, is in a totally different league when it comes to speed. And just look at that accuracy.
Mach 3. Let that sink in for a second. We're talking 3 times the speed of sound. That incredible velocity gives your opponent practically zero time to react. It makes trying to shoot it down extremely difficult.
And then there's this number, 1 meter. That's its circular error probability. So what does that actually mean in plain English? It means that half of the missiles fired are expected to hit within a 1 meter circle of their target. That's not just precise, that is absolutely surgical.
But it's not just a one-trick pony with speed and accuracy. It's got a whole bag of tricks that make it so hard to stop. It can skim just a few meters above the ocean waves to duck under naval radar. It's a fire-and-forget system, so it guides itself after launch. And get this, right before it hits, it pulls a sharp S-shaped turn to throw off any last-ditch defenses. Plus, you can launch it from pretty much anywhere, land, sea, or air.
So, the story of BrahMos isn't just about the hardware. It's also a huge part of India's larger journey toward building its own defense industry, a story of self-reliance.
And you can really trace this journey over time. It's a story of steady, deliberate progress, from that initial partnership agreement through years of tough testing,
all the way to being fully integrated into every branch of the Indian military. And they're still making it better.
And this right here tells a huge part of that story. While it started out with a lot of Russian parts, look at it now. Over 3/4 of it is made in India. The ultimate goal, of course, is to get that to 100%, making BrahMos a completely sovereign Indian weapon.
Okay, so the missile is a beast, and it's a symbol of self-reliance. But the story doesn't stop there. It's now become one of India's top diplomatic and, frankly, economic tools on the world stage.
And it's not just talk. Countries all over the world are taking notice. The Philippines has already signed on the dotted line, and the list of other nations reportedly interested is pretty impressive. They all see BrahMos as a serious upgrade for their own defense.
This deal was huge. We're talking about a $375 million contract with the Philippines. This was the moment everything changed. It was the first major export for the BrahMos system and a massive step forward for India's goal of becoming a major defense exporter.
And that really brings us to the bigger picture. BrahMos isn't just a product. It's the poster child for a massive strategic ambition to flip the script, to go from being one of the world's biggest buyers of weapons to becoming a major seller.
So there it is, the BrahMos, a weapon system that's the result of decades of strategic thinking and some serious technological leaps. It's clearly more than just a missile. It's a powerful symbol of a nation's rising ambition. But it leaves us with a big question. How will a weapon like this continue to shape or even redefine the future of warfare?